Had several of you had some questions one-on-one afterwards. I tried to take several of those before I needed to take a short break myself. I apologize if I was not able to give you the personal time that you would have liked. Feel free, frankly, to ask your questions to David, as I was teasing with him earlier, but he knows everything I know and a lot more in many instances, and will be happy to respond. For a lot of you in the Memphis conference, he's right down the road, and so our door's open, and you got some questions regarding your situation, feel free. My email and contact information's on our website as well. And yep, it just went off, didn't it? Yep, it's gone. The meter's not running. You want to email me, you want to call me, you just want to talk about some issues or questions. That's why we're there. We're in ministry together. So we want you to do that, and I invite you to do that. 2 or 3 of you came and said, some to the extent, okay, I'm convinced, we got to make some changes, I got to do that, but you've never served my church. It's not easy to change. How would you go about it? Well, I haven't served your church, and that's true, and I understand they're different. I have served 4, all of whom were different, and I can tell you that as I sought to change them, there were certain things that seemed to work and certain things didn't. What I'm hearing from pastors around the country, and I love hearing reports about how they have used some of my writings, what they are doing is that they are, as they have studied Not Your Parents' Offering Plate, that initial book that calls for the change and kind of makes the case for the change, they are purchasing themselves a half dozen or whatever copies. And they are giving those books to their finance team people or leadership folks, however that church is structured. And they're simply saying, I'd like for you, all of us, to read this together and to spend some time discussing the implications of what it says as far as our church is concerned. And you set that up on a weekend experience, or you set it up on 2 or 3 nights as you would look at, 2 or 3 chapters and 2 or 3, etc. What that does is it lets the book make the argument for change and not you. And it lets all of you collectively discuss its merits without you having to necessarily be the salesperson for it. And you meaning pastor. Now, hopefully coming out of that experience, you have a few converts. And you say to them at the end, look, I'm glad we all see this. We know that that's not the easiest thing to do as we go forward. Can we 6 see if collectively we can help bring this about with 12? And you continue to expand the circle. The worst thing you can do is get up in the pulpit and preach about this next week and give them the 10 things they got to do to change. The only thing that'll change when you do that is you. And the bishop can't afford that many appointments immediately. You walk it through in concentric circles to try to help bring it about. So, for what it's worth, then as you get some of those converts, it will then develop into, okay, we're all, you got us exactly how do we go about such and such and put this or that together. That's what the second book does. It is the practical book to the theory of the first. So don't read them backwards that way. Okay. Enough said. Plan giving. Easy money. You heard me say earlier that though this is the easiest money, it is the least sought and the least done. Barna, in his surveys, found that 5% of the churches in America have endowments. And of those 5 who have them, only about 10% of them actually market for it. Their nature of an endowment is $50,000 that Aunt Lily left us in 1953 that is still there. And therefore, we have an endowment. But there's been no attempt, no work, no effort, no energy in growing and developing that, and there's nothing happening on an ongoing basis. Bequest contributions last year amounted to over $24 billion, up over 12%. That is a lot of money. How much of that did you get? There are lots of tools in the planned giving world. And I'm by far not an expert on all of them, and frank, very few of them. I don't have to be an expert. We've got other people like Vin who can handle that, and others in his office. But you've got things like gift annuities and life estates and charitable trust and life estates. You've got all sorts of various tools that you can use. And most of us get really freaked out because we don't understand those, and therefore we stay silent about it because it's outside of our comfort zone. Oh, geez, that's going to require lawyers and paperwork, and I'll mess that up, and da-da-da-da, so we will do nothing. That's foolish. Right now, gift annuities are like one of the coolest things on the planet. And we owe it to our members to at least share with them what that can mean. Let us take, for instance, how many of you have got some old people in your church? How many of you are old? All right. There are, you can put your hand down now. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I mean, it took him a while to get it up there, and it's taking him a while to get it down, but we're getting. A number of the senior citizens in our churches have a significant amount of their estate, savings, in certificates of deposit. Because they are FDIC insured. They are safe. We've got it there. That's where Daddy said to put it years ago. That's where Daddy had his money all those years, etc. Now, some of you may have certificates of deposit. I don't know. Some of you may be bankers. I've talked bad about bankers so far, so you may have left too if you. But if we've got a banker here or someone who has a certificate, let us say you've got $100,000 in a CD right now. What is the interest rate you're getting on that certificate? You're getting 1.9? Not too bad. Anybody else? 1, I heard 1. 0.6. That's not real good, but at the end of the year, you probably will at least have your 100,000 still with you. But if you're getting 1%, you've got $1,000 that it made for you. Now, a number of these senior citizens are frankly using the interest off of those CDs to augment their retirement income. They have Social Security, maybe they got a little pension, and then the interest on that saving augments their style of life. You know, it's buying groceries. It's buying gas. It's getting presents for the grandchildren at Christmas and whatever. It's a part of their life. And for $100,000, they got $1,000 to improve their life. Now, right now, if that person is 80 and they wanted to do a gift annuity to your church, and it's going to be managed through your foundation, what would that 80-year-old, Chrissy, off the top of your head, what would that 80-year-old get on a gift annuity today? Just rough guess.
About 7 to 8%.
7 to 8%.
I just ran one on my 64-year-old friend sitting right here. 4.6%.
On a 60-year-old.
64.
Well, someday you'll be 80 and you can get 7 or 8%. Or you can just lie about your age and see if you can go ahead and...
That's still better than 0.5%.
It's a whole lot better. Now, here, I want you to hear this. This 80-year-old widow lady is now going to get, we'll go the low end, 7%. Now, if she's made it to 80, there's a real shot she's going to 90. 10 more years. Over a 10-year period, that certificate of deposit that she had would get her $10,000. But now she has purchased a gift annuity, the name of your church, and she's getting $7,000 a year. Over 10 years, she's getting $60,000 more dollars to apply to her standard of living. Now, what's the widow lady going to do with it? Maybe she gives more to the church. Maybe she takes a cruise. Maybe she gets her new car. I don't know. But there are so many things open and available to improve her life and make it more enjoyable because of that decision. And most of us as pastors have never even shared that possibility. Now, is it possible that's a bad idea? Yes. If that widow lady, for some reason, might need the principal of that $100,000, then it's a bad idea. The reason you get that kind of return is that it is out of the control of the owner and it has been given to a charity. And you get that kind of return. But you have lost control and you don't have control of the principal. But for the vast majority of those senior citizens, they never intend on touching that principal, have no desire whatsoever. It is solely to be an income producer to augment as they continue to grow older. Now what happens? She gets that extra percent as long as she lives. She gets a significant immediate tax deduction for the gift too. So the $60,000 plus dollars may well become $75,000, $80,000 if you total it all up with what she didn't pay in taxes. But we don't know about that personal situation. She does die when she's 90 after using that money. The principal that is there now becomes the ownership of the church. It is yours, and you may do with that as you wish to do. She won by having a much higher, better, more enjoyable last 10 years of her life. The church won by getting a significant gift down the road when she died. And the government got less taxes. Now, that's kind of a win-win across the board. Everybody won. Now, I don't want to say this is for every 80-year-old on the planet. You heard me. It's not. But it is for a lot of them, and we owe it to our people to at least put the option in front of them to say, hey, have you looked at this? Get in line. That 80-year-old may love you more than anybody else. She's already had the college ask her to do it. She's already had the hospital ask her to do it. She's beginning to learn what she can get. Are you in line? You know, I got a Consumer Reports magazine the other day. On the back cover was an ad for me to do a gift annuity to Consumer Reports, which is a nonprofit. Now, if I hadn't heard about that from anybody else, I mean, they didn't say in the ad, oh, by the way, you can do this with any of the 1.2 million nonprofits in America. They just said, here's what we can do for you. I may well have thought, golly gee, that's who I need to call. And after I make the call and give them my money, I make sure to go to church on Sunday. You weren't in line. So that's just one of the things. And I put it out because right now, certificates of deposit are so low that it is an incredibly opportunistic chance for some of our senior citizens as well as for the church. And you're saying, well, I don't know how to talk. You don't have to. You don't have to. That's what your foundation does for you. They are your plan giving staff. Most of our people, you don't want this? You don't want to do these gift annuities?
That's the right reason we have Chrissy Booth and David Reed. I also want you to know and others to know, the state of Tennessee has changed the laws regarding charitable gift annuities 3 times in the past 4 years. And your foundation has had to work through this process. We had to send in a stack. I'm not exaggerating. Chrissy and Sarah worked on this so that we can be approved, chartered, licensed to do charitable gift annuities on your behalf.
Right.
Not on the foundation's behalf, on your behalf.
Yep.
You need to send people to us or get us into your settings where we can build the donor relationships and explain to folks just what Clif has explained to you. You don't have to do the explaining. You do the initial introduction and bring Chrissy, David, or me in to do the more in-depth kind of explanation.
That's right.
I've got at least 5 of those scheduled in the next 3 weeks. And I've got about 10 more months of doing this for you. Okay? So use me, use Chrissy, use David. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Vin. That's exactly what I wanted you to do. A gift annuity. You have to be licensed to do a gift annuity. You're not. But they are on your behalf. What you have to do, as Vin was saying, is open the door. They don't have a right to walk into your church, call a meeting, and talk to folks. You're the one who gets them the mailing list or invites them in, and you open the door. And frankly, you go take a nap. I mean, that's when they work for you. Yes, sir?
Just a question. On a gift annuity, once the theoretical 80-year-old lady gives up
Yes, control.
can she come back and get that?
No, sir. No, sir.
It's gone forever.
It's gone. That's why you get the tax deduction and you get these. It is gone forever. It's just like she wrote a check to the church and put it in the plate. It is gone. Yeah. Yeah. You can't get it back. And that's, again, that's the only reason. When someone talks to me, when I'm working and they talk to me about that kind of gift, the first thing I do is sit down with them as we look at their life situation and say, can you envision a circumstance where you will need this principle for your life now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, as far as the interest, the church holds that $80,000 or $100,000 annuity and pays the interest
The foundation does.
until the death of the donor.
That is correct. Foundation's going to hold it. Foundation's going to manage it. Foundation's going to send in the IRS documents and all on your behalf. You'll hear from them when she dies. They call you up. What do you want me to do with the principal?
In reality, what we will do with any charitable gift annuity is that we purchase insurance. We take the principal, the $100,000 in this case, and we purchase insurance. And it doesn't take the whole $100,000. It takes a large percentage of it, but that's based on the actuarial estimate on a person's age. That is to ensure that that person will receive that annuity whether they live 3 years, 10 years, or 25 years. They will receive that for as long as they live, and the church will not wind up with zero. Because if you do this math, and you took $100,000 and the person's actuarial estimate was 10 years, but they lived to be 25, and we put $100,000 away, and we've had a recession in the midst, that money's gone. But we have guaranteed that that money would be paid. By reinsuring it, we have taken the risk out of it, and if the person dies in 3 years, the insurance company got the advantage. But if the person lives to actuarial estimate or beyond, we have all gotten the advantage. The donor, the church, the foundation on your behalf. And the donor has a choice. If, let's say that remainder is in the $40,000 to $45,000 range of the $100,000. They can go ahead and have us give that to the church. Or we can hold that in our investment pocket for the church until the donor's death. And then it goes. The donor has that kind of choice, but does not have the choice of getting any of it back. The other piece that Cliff alluded to, but I'm not sure you caught, and there are factors that go into this, but a portion of the donor's annuity is tax-free. Because of it being a donation, charitable gift.
And it's a big portion.
It is a large portion. It will vary with age and vary with other circumstances of their income. But it is significant, yes.
And the church holds this principle, or is it sold to a third party?
The foundation holds it for the church. The church then instructs us on how to use it. It's all in communication with the donor and donor requests and directive, and the church, it becomes the church's funds, and the church determines, is this we use endowment as a word to describe a lot of funds. There are some technical definitions about endowments. So it may be a principle that the donor and the church says this principle is protected. That's truly an endowment, an endowed fund. It may be that this is a gift to the church with no restriction, and that technically is not an endowed fund, but the church can make it an endowed fund once they receive it. I saw a hand skip. Cliff will.
Yeah.
Our minimum is $10,000. And that we have found across the connection with the foundations is that that's a place that a lot of people begin. And they realize that, I've got another $20,000 CD maturing in October. This is a good deal. And I've got one colleague that has one person that now has 29 CGAs. Because every time he got an IRA distribution that he had to take, he opened a CGA. I saw another hand. Bill and then Jim. We'll have to ask, I'll have to ask, and I'm not sure that I know the answer to whether it.
The laws change so quickly on IRAs and 401ks that we can check though and make sure we're within whatever today's law is.
I know that where you have to take a required minimum distribution from an IRA. That the law, at least for the end of December, who knows what Congress will do, right. You can actually do a transfer of any or all of that required minimum distribution to the church or to a ministry, non-profit charitable. You never claim it as income, therefore you don't get to claim it as a deduction. But the church gets, and we can show you that at another time. If you would give that to the church, you're able to give the church a whole lot more that way than if you take a distribution and then write a check to the church.
That's right.
Because you're gonna get less and the church is gonna get
Yeah,
less. One question.
that's
back
an
there,
IRA,
go back to
yeah.
you. Yes. Jim?
End-of-life issues where going into a facility, a person needs to pay down all their wealth in order to get Medicaid. Does the gift annuity, is it protected in that way?
We've never, I've not heard of any kind of issue of a person making a charitable gift annuity. The annuity part of that is going to be what impacts
The Medicaid.
the Medicaid issue, not the gift side of it. And the contrast is, I'm giving it to church. Okay, I'm not giving it to a person in order to get rid of it, and that's where the state has come in on that. Chrissy,
And I speak to this because we were
stand
involved in this.
up so they can hear you.
We were actually involved in this with my mother-in-law a few years ago.
Yeah,
They
we're
do
done.
look
Yeah, I'll
back
move on beyond.
at
They'll get to
several
asking you all kind of
years.
technical
So
questions.
don't think that you could today make a charitable gift annuity or a gift to your church.
Open, they hear it,
not
and-
know.
and then they'll get with
will
y'all.
know. They
Yeah.
look back at the Medicaid
And it's
for
opening.
Medicaid. They, within the budget, they will look back several years at those numbers. So it's not an easy way to skirt those things. You need to be thinking about that several years out as you start looking at end-of-life issues. And if they do have a charitable gift annuity and the income comes in, as been said, that will be counted in the Medicaid consideration.
In passing, that's about it, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, you bet. Thank you, Vin. And what was just demonstrated here is the expertise for this resides with these persons you have heard speak. They are on your staff. They are your planned giving officers on your staff. Everything that Vanderbilt University can do for a donor can be done by your foundation. Everything University of Tennessee, everything Methodist Hospital. Our members tend to think, oh, we're going to do a gift annuity or a charitable remainder trust and all of that. That's probably going to require a big nonprofit like UT. Your foundation has that expertise. If you are a church that has 100 members in it, you have the power and ability to market for planned gifts, exactly like the Red Cross. And that's what I want you to understand and to see. Why more of our churches don't use this every day, I don't know, because it's free.
One quick question and then I'll stop. How can the foundation pay so much more in interest than the open market?
Well, they're not competing with the open market. Those rates are set by law. The government sets those. So any charity in a gift annuity situation is going, if they accept it, they're going to have to pay those rates. That is set. That's set. So it's not a competition against the bank. It's a competition with another charity that does the same thing. They're all set by age. As you heard, 60-year-olds getting 4, 80-year-olds getting 7, etc. But it's set. I believe it's every month they
Yes,
republish
in
those.
fact, I ran one just last week, and every time I run one on my computer, I have to go and pull down from the national website
Yeah.
the rate and plug it in. So, and it is the same program that the American Cancer Society and Austin P and UT and all those places.
All the same
They're
thing.
built- they're all-
It's all the same. Yeah, so it's just in the foundation being nice.
And it's money that is coming out of your operational budget.
No. What money are you talking about?
The interest you're paying.
No. No, it is invested funds. As you heard Vin say, they actually purchase insurance that helps bring this return. And so, no, it doesn't come out of the church at all. The church gives nothing. The found it quite simply. And I want to say these are good questions, and you all need to be asking them. You need to be phoning and saying, yes, David, yes, Chrissy, yes, Vin, come in here and sit down and talk with us. Go over all of this. Very simply, Mama decides to take $100,000 from her CD or wherever and give it to the church for a gift annuity return. Preacher says, wonderful. Vin, can you take care of this? Vin says, yes. They come up, do all the paperwork, get it. The $100,000 check is written and deposited with the foundation. And from that point on, the foundation is paying her on a regular basis, as they are required to do by law for receiving this, until she dies, and then he calls you back. Oh, by the way, Mama died. What would you now like to do with the principal amount of that is left? So, church is uninvolved in the whole process after you introduce them to the foundation until the point that money now becomes yours, which occurs at death. I mean, that's as simple as it gets. Does that help? Yeah.
I understand now.
Okay.
And you're
So-
also doing a ministry to Mama, because Mama was only making 0.5%
Yeah.
at XYZ Bank, and now Mama is making 5 to 8%, depending on.
Yeah. Now, I want to shift away, and I know I started this thing on gift annuities, and there's a lot of other cool stuff. Life insurance is a very interesting tool and a very neat tool that can be used for planned gifts. A lot of people, frankly, have had life insurance for several decades, and it's been sitting in some lockbox. And there's ways that can be used. Life insurance can be purchased, and the church can be a donor. There's lots of tools. The house you're in can be a part of this kind of gift, and the lifestyle who's living it doesn't change until they die. There's a bunch of them, all of which your foundation understands all the legal ramifications of and can explain it to your members. We just want you to open the door. But let's shift to something that's even easier. The best planned gift and the easiest planned gift and the most used planned gift is the will. The will. A simple statement that says, I wish to leave blank to blank. I want to leave $10,000 to First United Methodist Church of, I don't know who wants it. Give me a town. I wish to leave 10% of my estate to First United Methodist Church, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, whatever that. There's all sorts of ways to phrase it. It is very, very, very simple. And it's the simplest thing to market. Now, just consider, what would a tithe bring? How easy is this? What preacher in here had around 20 funerals last year? We got somebody in roughly 20. Did you have 20? Oh, yeah. Okay, well, we'll just cut it off at 20. You're from Dixon, right down the street. First Church Dixon, and you buried at least 20 folks. What's your first? Alan. All right. Okay, Alan is killing off about 20 a year. Now, Alan, how long you been there?
6 years.
6 years?
Yeah.
Gotten pretty good at funerals by now, haven't you?
I've had 70 since I've been there.
Wow. Okay. So we're going with this roughly 20 funerals a year that Alan has. Let us say that before Alan became pastor, a pastor of the Dixon Church 20, 25 plus years ago, had this idea that we are going to start suggesting to all our folks, would you simply put one sentence in your will that just says, I want to tithe 10% of my estate to go to the First United Methodist Church of Dixon, Tennessee. Folks, that's all we'd like for you to do. He kind of mentions it. Decides they're going to just add one little line on the bottom of a bulletin. They're going to put it in the newsletters. Now they've actually added the way. Just a little bitty something that's kind of there. They may have one dinner and a program once a year about, but it's not a very big deal. And Alan has spent very little time on it. He's just kind of seen that it still gets mentioned. Well, now these people are dying. It is not at all unreasonable to assume that the average estate, somebody that's dying in Dixon, Tennessee, is about $500,000. Understand that it's your house, your business, all your savings. You get to adding it up. It doesn't take much to get to $500,000. Some folks might be sitting there going, oh my Lord, what a huge estate. You're richer on the day you die than you are almost any day. So his folks are averaging out about $500,000. Alan Berry's one. She had a line in her will. Lawyer calls Alan. What's he telling him? How much money is Alan going to get? $50,000. If it was $500,000, he's getting a check for $50,000. But understand, Alan's going to bury 19 more. So when the year ends, how much money has been given by that one sentence to Dixon Church? $1 million. Now Alan is sitting there thinking, oh geez, what do I do with $1 million? I'd better call that Chrissy lady. Chrissy, it's Brother Alan over here at Dixon. We got $1 million from folks who have died. We'd kind of like to set up an endowment program at the foundation. Can you handle that? We're on the phone. I cannot hear this. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, I just wanted you to, we're told, okay. All right. Well, in talking to the trustees, Chrissy, we'd like to send you this check, let you all manage it for us, and once a year, could you send us interest off of this?
Absolutely.
Anything else I need to do?
Well, we'd like to write up an agreement to talk about how that money is to be used.
But I don't know how to write that.
I'll come and do that for you.
Oh, and you'll share it with our trustees?
I will, and if they have any changes, I'll make it for them.
Oh, okay. All right, well, look, yeah, I'll send you a little letter, and, but this money's from Dixon, and so...
Well, when can I come visit with you?
Well, I'm a pretty busy man. How about in the morning?
How about 7:30?
It's not trying. Poor old Alan, we've already killed all his people off of him. But, okay, now we're being simplistic here, but he's doing 20 funerals. 20 sentences, $1 million. Now, there's a lot of things in managing endowments that the foundation does, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not going to get complicated because you don't need to worry about it. But to be simple, just to be simple, the average return, what Alan asked for was a check back on the return. Foundation has done well, gets good returns in the marketplace. Average return on the stock market since its inception has been around 10%. Let us just suppose foundation averages out 10%. Church's agreement was, we want a check for the whole thing, whole interest. So what kind of check is Dixon Church going to get the first year? $100,000. Then what are they going to get the second year? They get that 100, plus he buried 20 more. And for how long does that continue? For as long as he's the preacher there anyway. It goes forever. It goes forever. That principle's never touched, and it goes forever. And what's happening at Dixon, because some pastor planted a seed and started this long before Alan got there. But now his ministry has the opportunity to profit and benefit from receiving those gifts each and every year. And now his committee is meeting to talk about what new ministry, what new use, what new lives can we be affecting because of this money that's coming in. And I'm thinking, oh man, but Alan, how much work is this for you a year to get this $1 million? He's going to do the funerals anyway. Probably he spends a total of 2 or 3, 4 hours total all year of pastoral time. Maybe it's just like, yeah, let's go ahead and put a paragraph in this month instead of just one sentence. It's that easy. And when the proceeds come, he picks the phone up, he calls Chrissy, and it's out of his hands until the end of the year and a check rolls in. Now, folks, it really can be that easy. It can be that easy. And you're sitting here thinking, the bishop's not going to leave me here long enough to get most of that. Could be. But what kind of ministry is that? You know, some of us need to be planting the trees that somebody else gets to sit in the shade of. Amen. And that's where we are. You plant it. Plant that tree now. You're probably not going to get a big return from that. But a pastor, 12, 15, maybe 20 years down the road, and congregation will. We have to start that. It is really that simple. And it's all made possible because you've got these folks who, when you call, say yes and they'll take care of it. Now, marketing's your key. You've got to get word out. They can't market to your people without your permission. You need to do it 4 times a year. I can't tell you the number of churches. I said, you know that planned giving thing, man, it doesn't work. I said, what do you mean? We had a program year before last on it, and we just didn't get any response. What'd you do? We had a lawyer came in, he talked about it, et cetera, and just nothing happened. Well, what'd you do after that? Nothing. Had one program, didn't go. One program will lead to the second, will lead to the third, till eventually it will become who you are. So you need to commit. We're going to do this 4 times a year, once a quarter. What we're going to do is write a letter to a targeted group of folks we think would really be interested in this particular topic. Now you can put it out for the whole church, but you want to target senior citizens and persons who frankly don't think that they're immortal anymore. You want to have a speaker come and share on a topic like life insurance, like gift annuities, like life estates, like remainder trust, et cetera, and you want to be able to give them a brochure on that so they can take something home, and as they're trying to remember and calculate, they can figure it out. Some of you are sitting there thinking, now it's getting hard. Ringy-ding-ding to Chrissy's phone. You going to answer?
Hello?
Well, thank you. Hey, Chrissy, it's Brother Clif at, let me pick me a church. Which church would I like? I'm at Christ Church in Memphis. Senior pastor. I figured I'd go for that one. Chrissy, we're going to be doing some programs on planned giving. Kind of got a plan to do this like once a quarter, but I'm a little stuck.
What can I do for you, Cliff?
Well, I need to send a letter out, but I don't know exactly what to say.
Why don't I send you a template for the letter, and you can personalize it, make it your own, and then send it back to me, and I'll look at it, and then send it back to you with any suggestions I might have.
Oh, you'll like write most of the letter?
Oh, yeah, just send you an example, and you can fix it
Oh,
up
cool.
to your personality.
Oh, well, I haven't got much personality, but
Well, our template will give you some.
okay, thank you. Well, I got to have I don't know a lot about this stuff. I got to have somebody come and speak on this, and, you know, we don't have a big budget for it, and where do I find a speaker?
Don't worry about it. I'll come and do your first speech for you. Be your first speaker if you'd like, and then we can look through your congregation and identify people that might be great future speakers for you. I'll help you do that.
What's your charge on that, Chrissy?
It's free.
Oh, cool. Well, look, the other thing I figure we're going to need for folks who are there, I need some kind of like professional brochure that says all the right legal stuff about all this, and I hadn't got a clue as to how to prepare it and get it.
Don't you worry about that, Cliff. We have templates of all sorts of plain giving brochures, and a generic one, if you can have your secretary put your logo in it, or I can help you do it. Don't fret about that. And there's so many more tools that we have that I can show you that will be the cost of printing or just a little cost if you want to go even bigger. So don't you worry about
You
it.
can personalize the brochure
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's easy.
and like put Christ UMC on it, senior pastor, and like put my name in like large letters.
Do you have your logo in a form that you
Yeah.
can email it?
My secretary can. I don't know how.
And you just send it on and we'll pop it in. It's no problem.
All right, I want to get this straight. You're going to write my letter, you're going to speak, and you're going to provide brochures?
Well, you got to print them, but I'll help you design them.
Well, we got a copier.
Yeah, well, there you go. It'll go right through.
Wow. Well, how about a week from Sunday? I mean, like a month from Sunday. Can you be here?
When you look, I've got that open. And how about before that, let's sit down and talk. I'll come down and meet with you so we can all get on the same page and I can know exactly what you're looking at. And we can talk about some of the people you think might be there, and I can help you identify those that you might want to really make an effort to get there.
You're going to make me look good, Chrissy.
Well, I hope so.
Hey, thanks so much.
You're welcome. I'll see you next week.
As senior pastor, I just handed my plan giving staff person the task, and it is done. And now I'm going to go work on the sermon or this or that or whatever. Yes, sir.
I serve two very small churches. I wonder how this works of the initial meeting, having a luncheon or something where we bring 3 or 4 churches together.
If you're a 2-point charge or a 3-point charge or a 4-point charge, I think that would work very, very well, because particularly if they're in a charge together, they're used to being together for different meetings. If it's more than that, then what we need to do is have people that they trust sprinkled in their area so that we can, they don't feel like they're getting a sales pitch. Because what we're doing, we're not talking about giving away money. We're talking about investing in the kingdom and growing disciples. If you give money in your will, you are ensuring that you will be at work for the Lord in your community, in your church, in perpetuity forever.
There you go.
You're doing God's work forever.
Thank you. Good sermon. I think the bottom line of what you heard, just like this, well, here's my situation. I don't serve Christ Church Memphis. Here's my situation. Can you help me? That's what their phone number's for. Here's what I'd like. Here's where we are. Can you help me? And let them take it from there. Like Chrissy did, or wherever you happen to be in whatever your particular circumstances are. They're your staff. Use them. To not do it is like having a music director and you don't schedule music on Sunday. I mean, they are your staff to work in this professional capacity on your behalf. Now, after you've done that, then for churches that have at least 200 people in worship or more, you need to look as a pastor in asking one person a month to consider a planned gift. To identify one person that you will call on and you will communicate as the leader of that nonprofit how a planned gift from them could make a difference in the mission and ministry of that church. Now, this part is where somebody says, oh shoot, the foundation ain't doing that for me. I'm going by her house by myself. How do I do that? And why me? One, you have the relationship. You know them. And it's out of that relationship and out of both of your mutual concern for the church and the trust you have developed that you have this conversation. That's how it happens. Chrissy.
And the other thing that we can do, and it's probably best to do it in districts, but I work with our boards for our extension ministries, and I teach them how to make an ask. And if you're nervous and you want to learn how to make an ask, we can go through a training, a very less than an hour training where you can do some role plays and learn, because you shouldn't be nervous. You have a relationship, but sometimes it's hard to ask those that you love the most. But if we can set up, in district meetings or whatever, and take 30, 45 minutes and do
Excellent.
training,
Excellent.
how to make an ask, it's sitting right out in the car on my computer. I can help you.
That's a great offer, and it's so needed, and my guess is very few of you are very comfortable doing that. I hate it that she brought that up because, frankly, people pay me a whole lot of money to do that same workshop. And Chrissy's going to do it for free. It's a bad deal for me. But it's needed by you. I want to share with you another little horror story of my own. Perhaps you can see the importance of having the passion for your church enough that you should be willing to make this ask. It was about 4 or 5 years before I stopped pastoral ministry to work with Horizons that I was serving a church as senior pastor, and we were doing a building, which all the churches I served wound up doing. And I was out making a couple of calls one afternoon on a few of the folks I thought just might help us significantly with this building. It was about a $2.5 million building. This was back in 1988. A pretty good sized project for that church in 1988. And I was making a few calls, and I went by to visit with one of our little widow ladies. I was talking to her about this. And she looked at me and she said, "You been by yet to visit with Miss Nina?" I said, "No." I said, "Why, Miss Nina's sick?" She said, "No, Miss Nina's not sick." "Well, why do you think I need to go visit with Miss Nina?" "'Cause she can build your building for you if she wants to." I said, "You are kidding me. We're talking about 82-year-old Miss Nina, lives about 3 blocks down here, drives a 68 Plymouth, living in the same house she and her husband lived in forever. She'd been a widow for 20 years and doesn't have any kids." Yes, the same Miss Nina. "You don't know about that trust fund her husband left her, do you?" Well, not many people do but me. But she's always complaining about her taxes and gets mad about all that and whatever else. You ought to go see her. Well, I finished up that visit. And I thought to myself, because it was about 4:30, that, I really owe the Lord at least another 30 minutes. And I was, being the pastoral sort that I was, I probably ought to drop in on at least one more of my widows that afternoon. And I thought Miss Nina just might be a good choice. So I left that house and I drove over to Miss Nina's. Pulled in the driveway and went up the front door and knocked. And Miss Nina, she came to the door. And whenever you saw this lady, she was always dressed to kill. She looked like every time you saw her that she had just come from the beauty parlor. Her dress was just outstanding. I always kind of wore the same type of dress, and it was flowery or had colors on it or whatever, and her hair was just perfect, and that's just the way she always was. And she came to the door that afternoon and opened it, and that's the way she was standing right in front of me. And she opened it up and said, "Well, preacher," she said, "what a surprise. Good to see you." And I said, Miss Nina, how are you? She said, well, I'm fine. I said, well, that's a shame. No. I didn't, but I thought it. But I don't know what we said, but she, I know invited me in, and she would, and we sat down in her little parlor room, and she went and got me some tea or coffee or something, and she probably had a cookie or something. She always would. We sat there for a minute and we visited. And then I just said, Miss Nina, I said, I heard the other day about this trust fund that your husband left you. I said, have you ever given any serious thought to where all that was going to go when you go to meet Jesus? And she looked at me and she said, well, actually, I have. And I signed the papers on that about 6 months ago. I said, really? She said, yeah, I did. I said, well, Miss Nina, if you don't mind me asking, where's he going to go? I'm going to leave it all at the university. I said, to Fayetteville? She said, yeah. Miss Nina, you didn't attend Fayetteville, did you? No. I said, your husband? No, he didn't. Y'all never had? No, we never had any children. I said, well, Miss Nina, I'm just curious. I said, why did you choose the University of Arkansas? Well, she said, you remember, here it was about 6 months ago, we had that Veterans Day thing in the city, and the university president, that Dr. Thornton, he came and he spoke at that deal. Said, when he finished making that speech, said he and another young man, they came by the house afterwards, and they got to talking to me about it, and they asked me for it. And I got to thinking, I haven't made any kind of plan for that. And they were telling me about the young people and what all had happened with the young people. And I just got to think, that'd just be a good thing. We always wanted children. We never had any. And I like the idea of doing something for young people. And I just told them right then, I think that'd just be a good place for it. Let's just get that done. And that young man, he had the paperwork right there in his briefcase. Well, right then, I had a dilemma. I could try to talk this very sweet little 82-year-old lady out of her decision. I could tell her that wasn't best. But even I couldn't do that. She felt real good about it. She was comfortable with it. And so I told her that was good, and we went on, chatted about several other things, and talked about the building a little bit, and she was going to help us and all that, and I went on home. I left that church about 18 months or so later. About 2 years after that, Miss Nina died. And she left $12 million to the university. Now, I'm a Razorback, and I'm a Hog fan. But I'm a United Methodist, and I love my church more than I love the Razorbacks. And I believe that our church has a better chance to change this world than the university does. I believe we have a better chance to change the world than anything on the planet. And that the best use of that money would be that if it was in the hands of the body of Christ, not helping to build college football's largest jumbotron. The church isn't too far off of I-40. Occasionally when I travel it, as I did Just the other day, coming here, I just look over to my right, and I have to think, I wonder what that church would be like today if they were getting another $1 million every year. I wonder what kind of youth program for the entire city might be going on there. I wonder what kind, for half that town that's below the poverty line, I wonder what kind of daycare, child care might be offered free of charge. Wonder what kind of worship they might have in that new worship center that was all set up with everything of contemporary technology they'd ever want. I wonder how many mosquito nets might have been bought and sent to Africa. I just wonder. I wonder. But I'll never know. Because for over 67 years that Miss Nina was a member of that church, neither I nor any other pastor she ever had ever suggested to her that the church would like to be remembered in her will. We never ask. And Miss Nina gave the gift to the first guy that asked. I hope you won't make the mistake I did. That you won't look back someday and say, I should have. I should have put my passion for Bible ministry on the line and invited this person to help change the world. But I did not. And I wonder. Folks, you have an opportunity to do great things. And you have a foundation that's just sitting there waiting for you to call it. Yes, sir.
I can really appreciate our strategy for the lower middle class up through the wealthy. And I can see how that works easily. My question is, how do we focus a strategy for those who have been generationally marginalized? Their inheritance is minuscule because of redlining by the banks, politicians. So even though they have property, the inheritance is minuscule compared to the properties of many of our brothers and sisters. So for folks who are unemployed, underemployed, on welfare, angry about their conditions, do you have a strategy that do you modify your strategy? Do you use the same strategy, or will you just speak to that? Because a lot of our churches are in that category.
Well, that's a big question. There are those who need to learn to give, and there are those who need to allow themselves to be given unto. And the preponderance of the strategy that I have talked to you about is for those who need to learn the blessing of how to give, that we can help raise up those who need to be given unto. And it is the church doing that well and telling that story that hopefully will take those who are in need and bring them to a level to where they can then help bring somebody else up themselves. I wouldn't want to focus a lot of energy on someone who is unemployed and who is homeless and who is hungry and trying to teach them how they need to give away the last piece of bread that they have. I'd focus my energy on the person that's going to throw away half their food that day, on how they can use that to bring this other one up that then hopefully in gratitude they bring up another. Now that's a simple answer to a complex question. But it's responding to each with their need. And I would say that the poor man who needs food is equally needy in his need as the rich man who needs to learn that money is not going to save his soul. And we need to focus our ministry to both at the point of their need. Yes, sir?
Let me add to that the idea of equality partnerships, where a church that has a large treasury, so to speak, partners up with a church that does not. They address the needs that Sonny has lifted up in a creative way, particularly in situations where, for instance, as you said earlier, let's suppose a large church had a $4 million result on a $3 million campaign. What if a substantial portion of that went to that other church?
Yes.
Addressing those needs that Sonny has?
Yes. And we work that strategy a lot. I talked a little bit earlier about how we're being asked by conferences to take 10 churches at a time and see what we can do for them. And one of the strategies we're working with a number of them, because when we look at their donor, I had one church came in, a pastor brought 8 of his lay people. Only one of those 8 had a job. The rest of them were all out of work. But they were all unchurched until they found this church. Now, our strategy was not how do we get these unemployed folks who aren't working to give enough money to sustain this church. I mean, they couldn't pay the light bill, they couldn't pay the preacher, and yet the ministry was exactly what we need to be about. And we developed a partnership with another church to where, frankly, this was going to be the mission outpost for a church that was blessed with money, and their people needed to be blessed by being in the midst of those who were poor and who were hurting. And put the two together, and they both were able to use what they had for the betterment of both. It's a good thing. Folks, I know there's probably other questions. And as I said, when we're done, ask David. Talk with Vin, talk with Chrissy. Thank these persons for making this possible today. I want to say, as I leave you, to the 2/3 of this room that's made up of clergy, I thank God for you every day. I thank you for what you do in the 2-point charge and in the big downtown church. You are on the front line of ministry. I know what it is to be a combat troop and what it is to be in support. I understand what it is to have the bullets shot at you. Understand what it is to watch the bombs go up around you. And that's you. And you will stand in your pulpits again, and you will face your people again, and some of you this week will dodge bullets, and some of you will take blows, and some of you will rise once again, and you will pick up your cross, and you will carry it on behalf of Jesus one more time. And you'll do it week in and week out. And others of us will be far in the rear. And we're just trying to urge you on. What I'm doing in my ministry today is just sending you a few beans and bullets for the battle. But I'm pretty safe. They don't shoot at me much anymore. But the world isn't going to change because of what I do. The world is going to change because of what you do. If we win this world for Jesus, it will be because of you who are on the front line of ministry every single day, bringing that word regardless of the cost and the consequences. And I just want you to hear me say, God bless you and thank you. And I hope that there's just a little bit that I have given you in these 2 days that helps you stay in the fight, because the world needs Jesus. Thank you so much. Thank you, brother.
we do, thank you very much for leading us in these 2 days. Before I have Sarah and Tiffany distribute some things, on your tables was this brochure that's entitled Charitable Gift Planning Options. This is a good example of what Clif and Chrissy were talking about what we have for you. You will see this as, this is a United Methodist Foundation brochure. But when you open it, you will notice that this panel is blank and the back panel is blank. We have this in at least 3 different forms, right, Sarah? Depending whether you want a PDF or Publisher or Microsoft Word, where the front cover becomes your church's logo. This panel becomes the foundation information, and the back panel becomes information from your church about funds to which people may make easy gifts. That's the type of thing that we're trying to give to you, and all you have to do is place a call or send an email, and we're going to respond. The other thing, Mark Matheny wanted to say a word, I think, see what he's got. And I just don't trust Mark, but go ahead.
This is okay from the top. I'd like to invite my fellow singers up, and we thought it might be fun to give a musical thank you to Ben and to Clif and all the support staff and others for this event. I'll introduce them as they come forward. Jim Clardy, who's had the first idea, he walked up and said, "Do you have a song ready yet, Matheny?" Well, let's hear it for Jim. Come on down. Operatic star diva, former superintendent, Betty Lewis. Betty, come on up. And a person who has a foot in each conference as much as anybody that I know personally, David Compare. David, look here today. This is somewhat meager applause so far. I hope it improves. Who is this? David Fulton has volunteered to sing tenor. Let's hear it for David. All right. And the only other thing I would ask is that if you start clapping in rhythm, which would be characteristic of this particular song, please hold it down a little bit for 2 reasons. One, the recording. The other is, we know that sometimes the giving encouragement we give to people needs to be kind of low-key. True? Can I get an amen? Kind of low-key. Okay. Are we ready? All right, here we go. This is to the tune of I Walk the Line. It says, "We'll Walk the Line," a tune Johnny Cash classic, song requested by Jim Clardy. And the lyrics are by a Memphis Conference curmudgeon with clearly charitable intent toward our Tennessee Conference sisters and brothers. And in honor of Clif Christopher, Ben Walker, and David Lewis. So, congratulations. Y'all come out a little bit. Stand out here. We think you should see our faces. All right, here we go, folks. Here we go. I keep a close watch o'er the financial line. My pocketbook is open all the time. Our church has vision, oh, it's mighty fine. God's call is mine, love is our sign. I found it very, very easy to mistake my own priorities for God's for goodness sake. Let's try that line again. My own priorities for God's for goodness sake. But now I'll help God's people all to make a larger cake. Give for goodness sake. Now put your hands together, folks. You ready? Let's keep good-hearted in both heart and mind. If we all trust in God, we know we'll find a generosity of a greater, broader kind. Let Jesus shine. Let's walk God's line. You get the last line. Let Jesus shine. Let's walk God's line. Yeah. Thank you, friends. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think I thank you, Mark. While the PowerPoint copies are being distributed. I would remind members of the 2 extended cabinets that Bishop McAlealy and Clif will be meeting with the 2 extended cabinets over lunch today, and you will be meeting in the back room, separate room of the restaurant. Just go through the buffet line and as you go and be seated in there, and when everyone's there, we'll begin that meeting. And I think I've taken care of one other housekeeping thing that will help us. Items that you're not taking with you from the table, if you will at least stack them up together, we'll gather them, put them in boxes, and separate them later. But if you'll do that, I will, as you're doing that, I want to share 2 things in closing. 8 years ago, this past May, as a new member of the Commission on General Conference, I met a minister from New York who became a very special friend. Bill Barney and I became very close over the next few years. I was his Southern friend. He was one of my Yankee friends. He teased me and said I was the first person he knew who had 3 syllables in email. And so when I would send him an email, I would put a hyphen in Bill. You go figure out where it goes. We teased each other back and forth across those years. 2 years ago in July, Bill was diagnosed with myelodysplastic anemia. And through the months following that, Bill started to use a phrase in conversation with me and in exchanges of emails. On December the 13th, a little over a year and a half ago, I talked with Bill, and we also exchanged some emails that day. One of the emails that I exchanged, I said, Bill, I'm preaching Sunday, and I'm going to steal your phrase. He said, no, you're not. I'm giving it to you for you to share wherever you want to share it. I said, I'll always give you credit. He said, you don't even have to do that. 2 days later, Bill died. His phrase, as you will see at almost every email I send, unless it's from my cell phone, which is an amazing tool, because it's a phrase that I think many of you strive to follow. And as Bill and I talked about it, it was, this is the way we ought to do it because it's the way Christ did it. Live fully and love wastefully. Several years ago, as a campus minister leading Wesley singers on a spring tour, we visited a church in greater St. Louis area, and from that worship experience came a benediction that we used continuously, and I've used across now over 30 years. And I share it with you as you go this day. Christ was born into the world with a song of love. He lived, he taught, he preached, he healed, always with a song of love. Christ died an agonizing death on a horrible and ugly cross. But as he died with a song of love. On the first day of the week, Christ arose. But when he arose in silence. For if Christ's song of love is to go on, we are among the ones who must do its singing. As you go, may you go with Christ's song of love, and may you live fully and love wastefully. Amen. Amen.